And just what we want to cover for the time we've got together today. We're going to start off. I'm going to hand it over to Seismic's Head of Sustainability Communications in a moment, Olivia Hill. She's going to inform and educate us all on the rapidly evolving landscape around greenwashing and communicating impact, and provide some advice on how teams and brands can walk that fine line of ensuring you're not falling into the greenwashing trap, while also communicating your impact on people and the planet in a genuine and credible way. Olivia, we're very fortunate to be joined by a couple of Seismic's clients and active members of our community. Megan from Monica Vinader and Vanessa from teamblue. And Olivia is going to be asking them to share their experience in this area in a bit of a fireside chat. And then we're going to leave enough time at the end to open it up to your questions you have for Megan, Vanessa, and Olivia. So please, as we go along this morning, be sure if questions come up, thoughts come up, things you want to share, throw them into the chat along the way. Just a quick introduction to who we are for those who were not in the room yet when we kicked off. I'm Andy. I'm one of the co-founders of Seismic. Seismic is a sustainability and impact consultancy, and we exist to help our clients prosper by becoming an increasingly impactful force for good in the world. We help our clients in a number of ways, but there's you can think about the ways we support our clients in 4 kind of buckets, very relevant to today's topic: sustainability communications, helping our clients communicate their impact on people and planet in a credible and authentic way. We help companies develop ESG strategies and roadmaps using methodologies like materiality assessments. We help our clients measure their carbon footprint, come up with reduction plans for their emissions that align with frameworks like science-based target initiatives. And we help clients leverage the B Corp framework, making it oftentimes the backbone of their sustainability framework. And we've got, just on the next slide, a glimpse into the breadth and depth of expertise and experience from across our team in those various areas. And finally, a glimpse into a sampling of some of the clients and brands and teams that we've supported over the last few years of launching Seismic. We've had the great fortune of working with, partnering with many organizations across from B2B to B2C of various sectors and industries and sizes. And with that, I am very pleased to be introducing you all and handing it over to Olivia Hill. Olivia is Seismic's Head of Sustainability Communications. Olivia has over 20 years of experience in corporate communications and has built out a deep specialization in sustainability and honing the art of purposeful storytelling. Olivia, over to you.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, everybody. Welcome this morning. What I'm just going to do is take you for a brief 15 minutes on a little bit of a journey through a greenwashing landscape and how you can avoid it, which is a key part of what we do here at Seismic. Our communication services are about trying to bridge that gap between the sustainability efforts that a business does and the journey that they're on, and your marketing and communications teams that want to talk about these efforts, but need to do so with care and consideration. So today, I hope what we'll leave you with is a bit of advice on how you talk about it, the language you use, how you avoid that greenwashing brush, and how you can be that bridge between your sustainability teams and your marketing teams to get your communications right and, crucially, ensure that they're authentic. The first thing I just wanted to share with you is like this myriad of terms that exist out there. There are loads, and they're growing around this greenwashing world. You know, beyond greenwashing, you have woke-washing and youth-washing, and that's given rise to green hushing. And there are newer terms like green shifting here at the bottom, which actually are about shifting, companies being accused of shifting their the greenwashing blame or responsibility over to the consumer. So how do we understand this really busy environment, I thought I'd just briefly give you a short story around some of these explanations to start us off. We recently we're hiring for a copywriter, and we went through a blind application process where we ask a number of questions and they fill in answers, and then one of my jobs was reviewing the many answers that we got and reading through a short description from these copywriters, so beautifully worded, was a question of, can you give us an explanation of what greenwashing is? So I feel like anyone working at Seismic really ought to 100% understand what greenwashing is, but perhaps you, our audience, don't, because you would use someone like Seismic to help you to understand it. And when I was reading all of these beautifully worded descriptions, I had excellent explanations that that greenwashing is about claiming things around your products and services about sustainability that might be unsubstantiated. It's about the evidence behind those claims. And that is really true. But what was so interesting in these many applications that I had was that I felt that they only explained one half of that greenwashing explanation. And yes, it's about over-claiming on your sustainability efforts, and that those claims need to be validated and need to be robust and evidence. But greenwashing also occurs when you fail to consider the entire holistic aspect of your sustainable and social impact as a business. And so you might have validated and robustly held up the claims you are talking about over here. But if you haven't looked at all other aspects of your business, your supply chain, your social impact, your emissions of that supply chain, for example, if you're talking robustly about something else over here, you are still greenwashing because you are failing to look at the entire holistic aspect. And I found in 20 explanations that I was reading, which was a shortlisted set of copywriters we had applied, only one actually got that full explanation, that understanding that you shouldn't sell your claims, and that you also need to holistically have looked at all aspects of your business. So I'm pleased to say that it was that person that we hired, and that we all need to work harder to understand all of these many phrases that exist out there. So let me just take you into a quick look at that landscape on our next slide. This risk of greenwashing, which I feel has given rise to this other term, which is greenwashing, where we see a world in which people are asking for transparency. They're asking people to talk about their sustainability journey. We see here this 86% statistic of adults that are expecting to see transparency from businesses on their environmental impact. But despite this demand, which is why businesses need to be talking about it, there is this greenwashing on the other side of businesses who are afraid that they're going to be accused of greenwashing, and they are now not talking about anything at all. We have an example here of 26% of the companies that applied to the Science Based Targets Initiative. That means that they have set a net zero target, they've gone to that effort, yet they have, so many of them have not published this information publicly. So they set the target, but then they have to go on the journey of how they get there. Bear with me, I'm just going to have a sip of water. And so suddenly afraid, I think, of talking about that journey and their emissions, they're not actually publishing the information. So we need to find a balance here of avoiding the fear that you will get accused of greenwashing and not falling into the trap of greenwashing where you say nothing at all, because that has equally problematic consequences of then not being ready for the inevitable legislation that is going to come, the requirement to report on your sustainability. There are some businesses, depending on your size and sector, that are already on the way there and are needing to report, but it is inevitable that everybody will. So my suggestion always is get ahead of the curve, think about what you want to talk about and do so authentically. And then finally, before we talk about what you can do, let's just have a quick look at some greenwashing examples. which I think reflect this call for transparency, which means that people are sharing what they're doing, and then the rise of legislation around greenwashing that has developed from in this world of marketing. There is the Advertising Standards Authority have recently increased their guidance around misleading claims. You have the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA, who've produced the Green Claims Code, which reflects the European Commission's Green Claims Directive. So you need to do your homework. You need to know what this legislation is asking of you. And just some examples here for you. We had HSBC in the lead up to last year's COP26. Ran a series of climate change ads on the initiatives that they were investing in that positively impacted the environment. They were fantastic initiatives. Everything they were claiming was very heavily validated. However, this example that I just talked about earlier, what they hadn't done is thought about the emissions of any other elements of their business, the impact that the initiatives over here were having a positive impact, but they hadn't talked about and evidenced the negative impact of other aspects of their business. That's this key part about greenwashing. You might evidence that one claim over here, but what about everything you're doing over there? And then another example here is Unilever, a really robust business. They really think about their sustainability agenda, yet still their adverts for Persil, which we're talking about being kinder to the planet, were called out as being misleading. It's because it was too broad a claim, and crucially, they hadn't shown evidence for the full life cycle of the liquid in their products. They were focusing on the fact that 50% of their plastic bottles were now recycled versus before. So they had shown an improvement in the journey, which was the point about now that they're kinder to the planet, but they still hadn't evidenced that full life cycle. Again, look at that, looking holistically at business. And then finally, Hyundai and Toyota, they're good examples because they're producing electric cars. These are obviously the way forward for our future, but they had over-exaggerated the benefits of the systems in those cars and not looked at some of the things that still needed work. And just these over-exaggerations in their advertising meant that the ads were banned by the ASA. So some examples for you. Now let's talk about some advice on how you avoid being one of these, really established brands doing good things, but getting caught out. And there are three, I think, actually really simple things to follow. Simple, I say, as in common sense, not necessarily simple to do. But let me talk you through them. And then I've just got two specific examples of how things that we do with our clients, I think, really help you to do these. So the first, honesty and transparency. I think it sounds obvious, but actually, what does that mean, to be honest and transparent? And for me in communications, I found, so my career, and I think this is a lot of people who are as old as me and have worked in their businesses for over 20 years. So I've worked in communications for 20 years. Jobs in the world of ESG and sustainability didn't exist 20 years ago. So I've done all forms of communications across all sectors, internal and external comms. And every time I did it, in every way in which I was operating, I was always thinking about what's the positive, what's the way in which we frame positively what we're talking about. And then 10 years ago, I moved into purposeful communications, helping to businesses to talk about their sustainability journey. And I realized that my whole perspective in comms needed to shift. It needed to move into negative, which is like the banned word in the world of comms. I needed to talk about negative emissions. I needed to talk about negative impact on the planet. And this is language you don't use in communications. So really actually making this shift into being honest, talking about the challenges that your business faces, giving equal exposure to those challenges and your successes is a hard concept, I think, to understand in your communications, and it's a difficult but necessary shift to make when you are talking about your journey, because that's what it is. I always say that sustainability is not a destination, it's a journey, and there is no place to start. So when you start your communications, you have to show you are on a journey. Be honest about the fact that you might be at the start of it and you've got a long way to go. Show the impact of where you're at. And then that allows you to, which is my second point, evidence it and set targets and show what you're working towards. So crucially, once you've set those targets, don't fall into that problem of green shifting as one of those terms, where you reset your targets because you realize that you can't meet them. So be realistic, be conservative, and then think about how you evidence what you are sharing. And this is difficult because, again, communications, thinking about it from that marketing perspective, it's about strap lines, it's about one point, one claim. How can you say all the evidence behind what you do when you're actually trying to communicate something quite complex with a single strap line? And this is where, I'll go into it later, the value of impact reports is so useful as a business. Somewhere publicly available, you have evidenced your impact, you have included the detail, you have shown what you do, so that when you make those shorter, tight, impactful claims, you know you can direct people to somewhere that has the detail. And then finally, verify your efforts and your claims. This involves using a third-party partner like ourselves or a framework, so that there is someone else looking at your impact and telling you that what's a fair claim, what's not. But crucially, you can then externally share that it has been independently validated, so that it's not just you as a business looking at what you do, thinking about how you share it. Actually, someone else or another framework has given that validation to show that you are on the right journey. So 2 examples of things next that to think about in order to achieve these 3 points. The first is that framework point that I've said. So it's a bit of a complex world out there. There are many frameworks. There are many models that you can use to measure and talk about your impact. And some of these are now a legislative requirement for a business of a certain size or in certain sectors. And some of these are a voluntary framework that you would adopt. What the point is to look at one of them, feel what's appropriate for your business, and then use it as a way to externally review where you're at and have a framework by which to declare and measure your impact. We as a business really believe in the B Corp framework. For those that don't know, B Corp is a certification that holistically looks at your whole business. So it will look at all areas of social environmental impact and it will score them. It's a very high standard, which is why we believe in it. It holds companies to a very high account. And while certification may not be for you as a business, the framework behind it is a fantastic model to, as I mentioned before, holistically look at all areas of your business. And because it scores it and requires evidence across all those areas, you then have in this free tool that they offer all of that evidence and validity in one place that allows you to feel confident that you've looked at all areas of your impact, so that you can then put in place an improvement plan to take you on the journey to improve it, whether or not certification is the end goal or not. This is one, and there are many of frameworks that are really helpful to think about how you evidence, measure, and then can talk about your impact. And the second thing that I feel really helps you to achieve that honesty and then showcase that evidence is impact reports. What we just have here are examples of 3 impact reports that we've done with clients. There are many impact reports out there that you can look at. We have a library. We have a fun exercise amongst our team of always sharing impact reports, what we think was right, what's not, so that we can hopefully develop a best practice for our clients. We're speaking to teamblue here on the left and Monica Vinader today on the right. So do I encourage you to take a look at these impact reports. But crucially, the point here is that impact reporting allows you to go into depth. It allows you to really think about how you talk about all areas of impact, you know, the E, the S, and the G of your business, and gives you the scope to include the evidence and to think about talking about what you want to do. And then also in the creation of your impact report is giving your teams the language to talk about it. It forces you to think about how you talk about impact as your business. What does it mean to you, the why? And then the language that you use to describe some of these complex initiatives like emissions that you need to talk about, and also brings to life some of those case study stories. And storytelling is such an important part of successfully communicating your impact. And you could use your impact report to pull out those case study stories and bring them to life. And that's how you'll then have everything that you want to talk about in one place as a core location that you would publicly publish your impact report. And then you can pull from it all of the shorter elements that you'd want to share. So then from your impact report, I always suggest that you can then create a short form set of pages for your website around your sustainability journey. It gives you content to share on your social media, and it gives you individual case studies that you can pull out and bring to life. We will often do an impact report and then a PowerPoint version, so that then you've got slides that your teams can draw on for presentations. People, I've noticed in businesses, really struggle to talk about sustainability. It's a complex topic. It's not your day job. And so this allows you to actually really think about how you communicate it and then translate it into a bunch of other formats and content types that your business can use to feel confident in talking about it. So a final set of do's and don'ts before we move to our panel. I won't touch on all of these because a lot I've mentioned, but just some to bring out in terms of the do's. Think about your language. Is very careful if you're going to talk about something like being planet positive, unless you positively impact the planet as a business. Be very careful about how you use those positive terms. Think about all of your stakeholders, from your supply chain through to your investors. What do they want to hear about, and why do they care about your impact when you're framing your language? And really do embrace the journey. Don't feel you've got to reach a certain point before you can start talking about it. Realize that it is a journey, that your business is on it, and that you want to share it as you go with that transparency. And some of the don'ts to just think about is crucially, as I've said a number of times, don't forget to consider all areas of impact in your business, and make sure you publish evidence behind anything that you do talk about. Don't overestimate, be conservative in what you do, and don't only talk about what you've done well. So I'm going to pause there because I want to make sure I give some time to our fantastic panel that we have here today. So before we move some questions over to them, I'll just briefly introduce who I'll be joined by on the screen. Firstly, we have Vanessa. She is Group Sustainability and Legal Director at teamblue. So teamblue is a leading digital enabler for companies and for entrepreneurs. They strive to make all areas of their business, and it's a big global business that's spread out with lots of different product offerings, but they strive to make them both sustainable, diverse and inclusive. And Vanessa's, I think, fascinating career from a legal director through to sustainability really focuses, I think, on that evidencing, which we really enjoy working with her to ensure that they do as a business. And then secondly, we have the lovely Megan from Monica Vinader with us. Megan is the Chief Product Officer at Monica Vinader. And Monica Vinader is a British jewelry brand that really celebrates individuality, and what they do is really strive to make all areas of their business sustainable in what is a challenging industry, so that they can work to drive change in that industry, which I think is such an admirable thing for a joy brand to want to do, and it really sits at the heart of everything that Monica Vinader does, and the work we've been doing with them to really help to validate that and share it has been a really exciting journey to be on. So welcome, Vanessa and Megan. I'm going to hand over to you, and I would like to ask you both briefly if you would just give us a high-level overview of your impact journeys as a business and your ESG approach today, and just how you've communicated that with your stakeholders so far. Shall I go to you, Megan, first? Monica Vinader, and then we'll go to you, Vanessa.
Brilliant. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. So for Monica Vinader, the way we have set out our ESG approach to date is really taking the 3 pillars of environmental, social and governance, and taking the SDGs and identifying which of the SDGs really resonate to us as a business. So we've chosen 6. And over the past 5 years, we've really just taken that as our framework to accelerate our efforts. Since conception of the business, since day one, we've really focused on our people, both internally with Team NV and with our customers. We have what we call a customer obsessed approach, which is literally our absolute core value and our mantra that we live and breathe. And then given the nature of our business of manufacturing jewellery, we've put a significant amount of effort into our supply chain, really seeking to raise the standards and drive transparency and traceability within the industry. Over the past 4 years, we've been internally using the Positive Luxury Butterfly Mark framework. And then more recently, we've been using the B Corp framework to really focus and drive our efforts against those pillars and those 6 SDGs, trying to identify where we really want to accelerate and we want to really drive and we want to lead, versus balancing out the areas that we want to make sure that we're continually focusing on, but are not able to lead because you simply cannot do everything. And it's really the last 4 years that we focused on really communicating our efforts much more with the good, the bad and the ugly, so that it's the full transparent piece. So that's kind of what's been our approach to date in terms of how we've communicated it with our stakeholders. So it's kind of like a reverse triangle. So it's what Olivia has said. We use our annual sustainability report, which we've had now for the last 3 years, as a really robust, comprehensive document that goes into quite a bit of detail, setting out the context, reporting against the goals that we've set out, and setting out new ambitions for the future. That sits on our site. We know that only a very small handful of consumers are actually likely to read that report, but that report is what sets us out as being accountable. It's a thorough document that drives us, it drives our credibility. We've then created a landing page, which is essentially the kind of executive summary of the report. So for those consumers who want to know about us as a business but don't have time to read the report, they can get a kind of bite-sized view quite simply by clicking onto that page. There's then, of course, our digital channels of using email and using social, where really we are sort of cherry picking elements out of the report that we're then constantly sharing with the consumer who, potentially when scrolling through Instagram has 5 seconds of time spent on you, so that, people realize that we are a responsible brand. And then finally, but most importantly, is for consumers who shop in stores, we want to make sure that our wonderful sales associates really know and understand all of the good work that we're doing as a brand, and that they can, clearly and confidently explain to the consumers the work that we're doing. So training with our sales associate community is also really important.
Thanks, Megan. That's a really helpful overview, and working with you in the way in which you constantly validate, constantly want to push the journey forward is really impressive to see. Vanessa, over to you. Tell us about Team Blue.
Thank you, Olivia. And so happy to be part of this community. Our journey is quite a young journey because we started in I think March 2022 that we really want to drive this sustainability strategy within the group. And you heard the introduction of Olivia already, but what is important to know is that we are quite a young business. teamblue Group is a company that was only formed in 2019 after a merger of 3 bigger groups. And this is important to know because that made it a little bit difficult to understand where are we now as a group? What did we do in the different locations and regions? Are we good? Are we at par with our peers? Are we excelling maybe in certain areas? So when I started this journey as a sustainability director, for me, it was first about data. Now, I'm not a very data-driven person, but data is important just to understand where you are. And based on that, we then built that strategy around that because what is key is to find the focus points because there's so much to do on sustainability. And in the beginning, I was a bit lost. I was like, do I need to do everything to make sure that I'm doing it good and that we're serving the good cause here? But what helps in that strategy is to get that focus and to focus on those material aspects that are key to your business, to your sector. We are a tech-driven organization. We thrive in the tech sector. So immediately it was clear that we will have most impact if we look at our supply chain, our value chain, and make that environmental friendly. If we push that diversity in thought, diversity in product offering as well. And also, and I think that was, for me, the revealing part, we already did a lot towards the community. And the community for us is really the SME community, because this is the customer base that we want to serve, because we are giving them digital presence. We want to make sure that they thrive, that they have access to market, that they can grow, that they can seize the opportunities, innovate, challenge even the bigger players, and etc. So that community angle was also very important. Now, once we had set that strategy and the key focus points, I was looking for a framework. And I came across B Corp framework. We are not a B Corp certified company. Will we ever be one? I don't know, in all honesty. But what is lovely about the B Corp framework is that it's very holistic. And we started with doing a BIA assessment, a B impact assessment. And what is interesting is if you do that, you kind of measure already your activities that are currently running, but it's also giving you kind of a tangible feeling what you can do as the next step. And that's very interesting for us because that also defines like the key activities that we want to do going forward. Once we had the B Corp framework as our reporting framework, we indeed started to report on the 5 pillars of the B Corp framework towards our stakeholders. Who are those stakeholders? Well, in the beginning, definitely lenders, because we have some ESG KPIs in our lender documentation. So that was more the compliance part. We started to use the B Corp framework to report towards the board because we want to engage them in our whole sustainability strategy. And then, of course, also an internal communication, because we can do a lot of great things with a couple of people, but we need to make sure that we get that organization around that. Because for me, what is really important is that a sustainability strategy is not a strategy on top of your core strategy. It should be intertwined. So in the beginning of 2023, I did kind of a roadshow, a pitch towards leadership, and presenting it in a very simplistic way that those are the 5 pillars that are key that we want to monitor. This is an activity that we did in the past, which was great. And this is kind of the future outlooking ambition that we want to have, and that I also need your input and I need your support. And I think that moment was really key in making sure that you build that enthusiasm within your organization, because it's not me that drives sustainability. It should be the whole business, you know. It's not me that is telling the marketing story. I'm not a marketing person. I'm a legal person. I'm good in legalese wording, very lengthy sentences that doesn't engage anyone. But I need to make sure that the marketing people kind of want to help me in getting that message across. that commercial people see like, oh, there's an interesting part that I can actually pitch towards our customers. That my HR colleagues say, well, when we do a new hire, we really need to emphasize what we are doing from a sustainability angle towards the group. So that was the internal communication. But then we felt like we need to bring this also externally, also to support any statements that we want to that we make, and also to build that transparency. So that that's where we also hooked up with Seismic. They help us with making that story very clear towards the outer world, but making it sure that it's our own story, that resonates to our culture and our values and etc. So that's a bit where we are in that ESG / communication journey, but still a lot ahead, definitely.
Thank you, Vanessa. It was a really good insight and so helpful when, as you say, you're dealing with a complex business like yours, a group that's come together, investor requirements around ESG, which is often a driver. So thank you for talking us through how you link that to your own agenda and usual. And we found like using your values to actually talk about then the topics of your sustainability was a really good way to link it right back to you. Okay, I'm now going to ask you both a couple of questions around those terms that we've talked about, greenwashing and greenhushing. Megan, I'm going to come to you first to talk about greenwashing and how an awareness of it has influenced you and Monica Vinader and your decisions and approach to communications.
Yeah, we're definitely aware that it's a really fine balance between greenwashing and greenhushing. And I think just generally within sustainability comms, we're definitely on a journey, and I don't think we've got it quite right yet. There's certainly more work to do. I think the biggest factor for us is knowing that our consumers, first and foremost, shop with us for our designs and for our brand and for our affordable quality proposition. We know from consumer surveys that sustainability is important to some as a purchasing decision, but it's certainly right now not the primary reason why customers shop with us. So we've always got that in the back of our mind of making sure that we are communicating clearly our sustainability messaging, but that it's not dominating. So it's a struggle to find the balance between clear comms and not overdoing it. But also trying to ensure that customers feel they can come to us as a responsible brand. So in terms of trying to avoid greenwashing, the approach that we've taken is, I guess, kind of 3 points. The first is keeping it simple and sticking to facts and being as data orientated as we can. The second is backing up our claims with evidence and verifying them. So to give you an example, we've recently launched lab-grown diamonds as part of our range, really as a quest for more transparency and traceability within the supply chain. So for those who don't know the industry, with smaller diamonds, it's very, very difficult to have traceability, because when diamonds get cut, they tend to get then graded and moved into different parcels, and those parcels then get shifted all over the world. So it's really difficult to have transparency and traceability of the origin of the materials. So to overcome this, we made a conscious decision to use, or to start using, lab-grown diamonds, so we know exactly where they've been grown and where they've been cut, to where they've been manufactured, to them then ending up with the end consumer. But we want to make sure we're not shifting from one problem to another. Mining diamonds is a very carbon-intensive process, but equally so is growing new diamonds. And so the way to use lab-grown diamonds sustainably is to grow them using renewable energy. So we set out to find a partner who was growing lab-grown diamonds using 100% certified renewable energy. And we only had the confidence that we'd found the right partner when we'd had a third-party organisation go in and validate that they are indeed using 100% certified renewable energy. That then, alongside working with the team at Seismic to gather relevant kind of research-based evidence, helped us to understand that switching to a lab-grown diamond uses 95% less carbon emissions than a mined diamond. And so it's really by, I guess, drilling down to the facts and having evidence-based and verified claims that we then really have the confidence to go quite bold with a very simple message. We are now using traceable diamonds that use 95% less carbon emissions based off using 100% certified renewable energy. Like those are the two lines that we've kind of used throughout our communication, and we have the confidence to communicate that clearly because of the verification that's been done. And I think the third point that I would highlight to help us ensure we're not greenwashing is using a certification or a framework to kind of do the validation for you. So as an example, since 2015, we joined the Responsible Jewellery Council, who are a business which drives responsible business and daily practice within the sector. In 2021, we became Positive Luxury Butterfly Mark certified, and we've worked with our supply chain to implement various different standards and accreditations. And it's really having those certifications that helps us have the confidence that, and you know, the kind of external validation that to know what we are doing well and to know what we're not doing well. And that then gives us the confidence to, I guess, communicate clearly what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, but also internally build into our roadmap where we want to make improvements, so that we have, you know, so that we can be making positive change along the way. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's definitely an area that's constantly evolving. And also what we thought good looked like 12 months ago, you know, we now look back and we think there's more we could be doing there. There's another claim that we could be making, there's another body that we should be working with. We launched a product passports initiative about 12 months ago, which gives the customer the end-to-end visibility of where the materials of the products have been sourced from and where the manufacturing along the way has happened on a selection or a percentage of our product range. Yet throughout the year, we've kind of built and added more and more to that range. But in the last 6 months, we've been working on having a third-party validation that chain of events actually is happening, so that we can again bring to the consumer that added confidence or that seal of approval that don't just take our word for it. This has been validated that this is actually happening. So yeah, in a nutshell, those would be my kind of key focuses that we are pushing through as a business.
So interesting, Megan. Thank you. I love the story around the lab diamonds, having like been part of seeing it come to life. I think it really shows the work that has to go behind the scenes in actually really reviewing and thinking how you challenge an industry, how you validate those claims before you even get to the point of communicating it. And you know, there's a lot that has to happen first before you can feel confident in then talking about it. I'm going to come to you, Vanessa, for just one further ask, and then we're going to open up questions to the floor because I want to make sure we give time. But on that green hushing side, so not talking about anything at all for fear of the greenwashing brush, how at teamblue have you avoided that? And what advice would you give? I'll try and ask that you keep it short so then we can open up questions to the floor, but I'd love to hear what you've done. Definitely.
Well, I think there's something to say about being humble on the good things that you do, but you're missing out on the transparency part, definitely. For teamblue, as I told you before, we started with data. We calculated our carbon footprint for the first time in 2022, 2023. We saw that we actually were already in a good shape compared to our competitors. The difference was competitors, they mentioned on their website, oh, we have green hosting products. We are doing everything for the environment and etc. At teamblue, we didn't say anything, although our carbon footprint is much better actually compared to our competitors. So it was kind of a missed opportunity. I told you that we hooked up internally with the marketing people to see how we can drive that story. And at a certain point, there was a refurbishment of one of our websites in the UK. And we said, well, why don't we actually name it and say that we use green data centers, that we have renewable energy source data centers? But what can we then actually say on the website? So it was kind of scared to make that statement. At that time, we were actually working with Seismic to start our net zero journey. I think that was the perfect moment to ask, hey, how is our data? Is it high quality? And if we want to make the statement, can we verify this? And how do we actually put it on our website to avoid buzzwords like green and etc.? So I think that third-party verification was quite essential for us to actually make that first statement. And we are really only in the beginning, because if you look at the other brand websites, there's nothing on sustainability there. But again, it's a missed opportunity to be transparent. But again, it's finding your own words in saying how sustainable you want to be or how sustainable your products are.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's such a good example. And I think what was so wise in what you did in not only, we are helping you to measure all your emissions so we can see that data straight away, but thinking about the specific claims you want to make and knowing that just your validation of it isn't enough. So asking us to validate it, which means we will then think through the evidence. And then secondly, I think what's also really valuable is then thinking about how you showcase that evidence. And what we talked about was, if you are then going to make a claim about 100% renewable, where do you put the explanation for customers? As Megan talked about, there's very little that they're going to take on board. They want to know something is sustainable, but you need to make the journey for them to understand the detail of the information behind it, the data that you are evidencing it with, easy. It needs to be carefully worded, and it needs to be made accessible, even if it's not the front and center of where you put that claim. So Megan and Vanessa, thank you. Our time is not up yet. Let's hand back over to Andy, open up questions to the floor. And I can see there's a lot, so let's see what we can get through in the time.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks, Megan. And thank you, Vanessa. So interesting, I think, to hear how you all have the things you're considering in what to communicate, how to do it in a credible and authentic way, and who you're working with, especially. I think just maybe on that last point, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned it, Vanessa, and Megan, I think from my understanding of your role, you're both accountable for sustainability impact at your organization, but you don't necessarily have deep decades of expertise in these topics of sustainability and ESG. Who all, and I think from knowing our community, there's a number of individuals who are in very similar situations. They have their area of expertise is specific to a function within the business, and then they inherit responsibility for sustainability and impact, which they're oftentimes very excited about. But I guess it kind of, I think what we've heard here is it's a bit of a team sport. Who have you found you need to work with internally in order to manage your impact on people and planet, and then communicate it effectively?
So from Monica Vinader's perspective, leveraging the amazing team in our people and culture team has been really important, because they are on a daily basis absolutely living and breathing our people, our community. So they've been a really pivotal aspect to the S in the ESG. The other aspect, or the other side of the team that's been really important to work with, is a supply chain team, which we have over the past couple of years built out to include a specialised transparency and traceability role, because it's really, the supply chain is a big part of our business, and it's a big part of the risk factor of our business. There's a huge amount of people involved, and it's traditionally an industry that has its challenges in terms of where the materials are sourced from. So really working with the supply chain team has been hugely important. And then more recently, we have taken on a risk manager who's helped us really focus on, I guess, the policies side of things, and making sure that we've got the proper foundations in place, spanning across all aspects of the E, the S, and the G. They're the three teams that we've really built on and kind of leveraged to a degree.
Thank you, Megan. And you, Vanessa?
I think on our side, my advice would be start at the top. Make sure that you have a very good sponsor on board level. Because I saw one of the comments coming in, it's like, yeah, we don't really have much budget to spend on sustainability. With me, it was the same. I didn't have any budget, so it was like, do something and make sure it's good. But sometimes you need to make an investment. And I think what is really important is that you need to address sustainability from a business point of view when you go to your board. And really show also the added value, because there is a lot of added value. You have better access to capital market. It will increase your value over time, and etc. So it's that pitch that you need to bring. And next to that, of course, also making sure that you can get a little bit of budget specifically on that area where you think you can have the most impact. But next to what Megan said, I would definitely say make sure you have a board sponsor that can help you along the way. Yeah.
Thank you, Vanessa. And maybe just, I know that both of your businesses have been investor backed, supported by investment firms at different points. And I think whether that's an investment, let's say a private equity investor, or many organizations are a part of a wider group, and get investment and support that way on their ESG journeys. Just curious, what are you hearing and from your investors now or in the past? How have they supported you? How have they held you to account? And are they encouraging you to communicate more, or are they encourage you to be very cautious about what you communicate in terms of your impact on people and planet?
I think from our experience, we've really found with both private equity backers that we've had over the past few years is that ESG is incredibly important, and they've both really backed and encouraged us to properly focus on this. I guess from both a resource perspective, but also the financial perspective, ensuring that there is appropriate budget allocated to allow and enable a lot of the work that we've done. It's definitely feels at board meetings that there's a really clear consensus. This is a really pivotal part of the business, and it's one that they are certainly encouraging us to work on and to communicate transparently on.
Stay with us. We are PE backed, private equity backed. We have an audit every year specifically on ESG, which helps us as well, because then we can measure those things that really are important also from their perspective. I think the added value absolutely is that they have this community of portfolio companies where we all struggle maybe with certain challenges of sustainability, and they bring those people together. Again, if you don't have the resources in-house, reach out to portfolio companies that struggle with the same, learn from them, share your experience, because then it helps you as well to build that strategy going forward. They definitely also support you in communicating that. I think it's very important also for them towards their investors to show what great things that their portfolio companies are doing. So use that community. If you're a PE-backed business, use that community as well to learn from.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both. And I recognize there's questions we haven't gotten to yet in the chat. I think maybe just on that point, I think we like to encourage people here in the Seismic community. Sharing experience, sharing knowledge, sharing information is wonderful, but encourage individuals and organizations to connect and collaborate directly going forward as well. So maybe we can keep those conversations going on the back of this. Vanessa and Megan, thank you so much for your time today, generous sharing of your time and your experience. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that many in joining in today have as well. Just as we're winding down our time together this morning, just wanted to point out that our next and final breakfast briefing for the year is going to be next month, just under a month from now, 12th December, where we'll be sharing with you some ideas, some shared experience about how to get started with your ESG strategy, which hopefully will be very relevant timing for a number of you as you're looking towards planning for the year ahead. That's it for us today. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olivia, for leading the fireside chat. Thank you all for being here today, and wish everyone a great Tuesday and a good rest of the week. Thank you.